Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. We are husky, hairy, huggable homos who love film, and each week I am delighted to get together with two of my favorite people in the universe to talk movies. This week, of course, is no different. Please give a hearty hello and welcome if you're listening live or listening on digital tape delay to my fabulous co-host, Jim Puliafco. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, babe, and hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Movie Bears Podcast.
Very special indeed. And Will Lindis is here as well. Welcome, Will.
Hey there, guys. If I fall over during tonight's episode, someone should pick me up because I've got some things to say.
Oh, goodness. I knew that was going to happen. Well, we do have a big show for you guys this week. We are going to be talking about last night's Oscar ceremonies. Of course, last night being relative to when we're recording now and not necessarily when you're listening to the show. We'll just say the 2018 Academy Awards. How about that? Does that work, guys? Are we
works. Oscar, the 90th Oscars?
There you go.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Make 90. 10 more years, we'll make 100.
That's
crazy,
true. Right? Indeed. Well, just want to give a quick shout out. Looks like we have some people jumping on live with us despite the late start time. Sammy W. from Denver, welcome. Glad to have you with us, Sammy. Thank you to our listeners for being flexible with the time. I'm working this crazy schedule. I pretty much turned from my work computer straight to my podcasting computer. So I'm in a little bit of a flurry right now. Please be patient with me, guys. Be gentle tonight. All right.
Flurry.
But a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. So we are going to dive right into it. Guys, ready, set, go. Yes. Are we ready?
That's what we're here for. Yeah, let's do this thing.
Hooray for Hollywood. Let's go.
All right. Well, then here we go. Our discussion of the 90th Academy Awards. Believe it or not, there is an official theme for the Academy Awards every year. ABC publishes it on their YouTube, so maybe we'll use some of that.
We'll steal it.
We'll see. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you just heard it.
Right? The magic of digital tape delay.
The deed is done.
In any event, man, so much happened.
We are from the future, and we have stolen the theme song from the 90th. Yes, whatever.
Well, we hope ABC will be kind since we're promoting their show on our show, and we make no money on our show. We do it for fun. Fingers crossed we don't all end up in a lawsuit. If we do get sued, we will just edit this episode and remove it. In any event, a lot happened last night, you guys. Where the hell do you want to start?
Oh, man. I guess we'll just start with kind of our overall impressions, right? Is that a good place? You guys good on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Start big, then narrow down.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I'm not going to get into like predictions and stuff like that, but we as we do every year, we had a kind of an Oscar viewing party with some friends. We kind of like skinnied it down a lot this year. In the past, we've had like 2 giant rooms with 2 screens to watch it going simultaneously. This year, we just kind of narrowed it down to I think we had like a dozen people, which is about the perfect size, I think, for watching the Oscars. At least it was for us this year. And I think everybody had a good time watching the show. I think it was pretty entertaining as they go. There weren't, there were some funny moments. There was some kind of craziness going on during the show, but nothing, there were some radical things going on, but nothing too crazy like last year. I mean, last year's Best Picture announcement kind of took the cake. There was nothing that rose to that level, I don't think, on the show. So I think it was fine. It was enjoyable. I think the awards were, I was happy with pretty much all of the awards, maybe one minor exception. But I was pretty happy with all the choices or all the winners, because I was happy with most of the nominations too. So Yeah, I was pretty happy. I was I really enjoyed watching the show. How about you guys?
Yeah, for me, I think this was in a good way, a pretty subdued night at the Oscars. And what I mean by that is, I don't think there were any like major crazy upset surprises. There were some that weren't maybe the obvious front runner that ended up winning, but I think that this year all of the precursor awards sort of predicted some combination of what we saw at these Oscars. I think that you didn't have, like you mentioned, like there wasn't any giant snafu, anything major that went on. The Oscars ran a little too long, but then, you could copy and repeat that every year and that'd be an accurate statement. So no surprises there. The Jimmy Kimmel as host was funny enough. Not all of his jokes landed, but enough of them did to where it was a satisfactory hosting job, I would say. Some of the bits worked, some of them didn't. Some of the presenters did a great job, some didn't. I mean, all in all, like it averaged out to like an above average night of fun. For me, more than anything, what I really, really enjoyed, like my biggest takeaway, my biggest source of joy, outside of Tiffany Haddish and Maya Rudolph, who we need to spend a lot of time on. But they did these montage cuts, usually coming back from commercials or like celebrating Hollywood or celebrating some of the major awards. And those were remarkably well edited montages. Like when I think about the Oscars as joy of cinema and a celebration of this thing that we spend like so much time each year working on and talking about and viewing and enjoying, these montages captured that, like that joy of cinema so well. So there are a few other highlights, but I just really want to bring those up now because I don't know that we'll have a chance to spend a lot of time on them. Those montage segments were really good. But Brad, how about you?
It was the Oscars.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean they were good. I don't know. Like Jimmy Kimmel, yes, he was funny, but a little of him goes a long way for me, and I got a little tired of his shtick. But again, you guys know I am not the comedy guy of the Movie Bros podcast. Comedy usually doesn't land very well with me. I was happy with a lot of the winners in the categories. We do a little Oscar pool every year, and we picked just 13 of the main categories for our pool because we didn't want people to have to spend 40 fucking minutes like filling out the ballot before the show started. And I got 11 out of the 13 right. There were only 2 that got me. And of the 2 that got me, I was completely okay with how it went. So, very happy with how everything turned out. I just feel like, God, the Oscars feel longer and longer every freaking year. And I realize it's like the Super Bowl of the movie world, but like I could deal with a lot less of the, hey, we're celebrities, let's try to be funny on stage, and more of the like, hey, let's recognize the fucking filmmakers and give them more time to talk and less time for you to shtick yourself. But that's just me. I'm the grumpy old man.
I think it's especially pronounced when you have people who are not naturally funny. And I'm not saying like that comedian is bad. I'm talking about people who are not comedic actors who are up there kind of trying to do a one-liner that someone else has written for them and put on the teleprompter. And 9 times out of 10, those fall very, very flat. I think with comedy, you either have it or you don't. And the people that do have it are the ones that are able to create these wonderful moments. Whereas the people that don't end up just like their jokes just fall so flat. And that happened a few times. That happened quite a few times where like someone would say something and sort of mug for the camera and you'd have like a smattering of applause and you could tell they were expecting something more. And you feel kind of bad for them, but at the same time you don't, because they're presenting at the Oscars. So like they have nothing. They have nothing to be envious of me about. But yeah, I'm kind of with you there, Brad. I think also some of the interstitial like gags that they did, those are such a time wasters for me. Like they did this thing at the Oscars this year where they took everyone over to a nearby movie theater to interrupt a screening of A Wrinkle in Time so that all of the people in the all of the actors and directors can hand off candy and foods. And don't get me wrong, there were some cool as hell moments in that, like Army Hammer with a hot dog gun, like that is amazing. Guillermo del Toro and Lin-Manuel Miranda carrying in like a giant like 12-foot sub, like yes, like that is like my wet dream. But it took them so long to set all of that up and so long to execute on that. If that had been a 2-minute segment instead of what felt like a 10-minute segment, I think it would have been punchy and great. But otherwise, it was sort of like that gag Ellen did 2 years ago where they invited people in and it just soaked up so much time. Like there's so many of those time wasters that they just need to find a way to edit them down and get them through and done and still get those jokes across, but then get back to the ceremonies.
It's just unfortunate because there's so many people that like they started playing the music. There's one guy who for best picture, oh my God, best picture, like the one thing at the end of the show everybody wants to see. He didn't get to talk at all until Jimmy Kimmel asked him like, hey, what were you going to say? And I think about the stupid like 10-minute, let's go to the other movie theater thing versus like this guy who finally gets his like one chance. He's probably been waiting his whole life to win an Oscar and make a speech. Sorry, we had to have Guillermo del Toro holding a sub sandwich. Like, I don't know. That just feels weird to me.
And again, you could have done, if you still want to do that joke, you can still do that segment and you can just do it. You come back from commercial and say, hey, everyone. So this is what we did during the commercial break. We sent Army Hammer and Guillermo del Toro over to this theater. Let's see what happens. Cut to the camera. You see the hot dog gun. You see people cheering. You see the sandwiches. Isn't that funny? And we do that because we're thanking you, audiences. Now back to the, you could have punched that out in like 2 minutes. And it would have been funnier. It would have been funnier and it would have been more memeable. I think about like that crazy Super Bowl halftime show. Brad, you put this in my head mentioning the Super Bowl with Katy Perry a few years ago. And where just like all of that bonkers shit happened during her set. One of the most memeable and most interesting was that left shark who was out there just like completely dancing off of rhythm. And it was funny because it happened for a few seconds. It was one of a blink and you missed it type thing. And so you could come back and revisit it. If we had seen like 10 minutes of that left shark dancing around, it would not have been funny. It would not have worked as well. We wouldn't have been talking about it positively the next day. And I think that's something that these Oscar writers could really take to heart, like how to make moments that don't drag.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit. I mean, yes, I think this gag probably went on a little too long. It took a little bit too long to set up. I would definitely agree with that. But I kind of like the existence of these things because they draw us away from the humdrum of the normal rhythm of these, award shows, right? Where, oh, here's another presenter to come out and introduce this award. And, oh, here's another acceptance speech that's too long, drawn out. And yes, everybody should get their time, Brad. I believe in that. But I kind of like the unexpected element of these things where like anything super funny can happen. They picked the guy out of the crowd to read this card about movies and he's reading it so deadpan, like, oh, the magic of movies, blah, blah, blah. And I thought that was pretty funny. And I like that, that kind of unscripted feel to that, even though obviously the thing was set up and at least outlined in the script. But I guess I like the spontaneity of those things to some degree because funny things come out of those. Just maybe cut it down a little bit. It would have been funny.
And that's where I'm at. Like I when these gags go over well, they go over very well. It's just a lot of times they feel like bad Saturday Night Live sketches where it's like they don't know how to end them, so they just kind of keep going. And I feel like for a show that's already known for going over on time, like if I were in that writer's room working with Kimmel before, like I would be thinking pacing for every single idea that came out of how do we do this, but how do we do it quickly? So I like the ideas of these jokes. I just would love for them to find a way to get their thoughts across more quickly, more efficiently.
Yeah, agreed. So What about I mean, I think these things come about. I think they have their genesis in kind of like the late night with David Letterman. I think he was kind of the pioneer in doing these things that would cut from the studio and go out into the street and do something wacky. And I always, I don't know, maybe I'm a child of the David Letterman show, so I enjoy those things quite a bit. Now Kimmel's okay. I thought he did a fine job with the hosting duties. Nothing to really fault him for last night.
And it's tough too, because one of the things that Kimmel has to balance as well is this is a very political year in terms of everything that's happening with the Time's Up movement, all of these different things happening at the exact same time. And so I think that the smart move for a host is you have to be able to recognize these and find the humor in them, but also it is very tough. It is a minefield to navigate. And I think that it could be very easy to sort of step out of line one direction or the other. And I think, to Kimmel's credit, I feel like for the most part, he found what those boundaries were and he could push to the edge of them, because on the borders is where humor lies, but without going across them. I personally didn't come across of anything where I like cringed hearing him say it, and that was really good. It was really good to not have those moments.
Well, what did you think about the whole Harvey Weinstein thing? Because yes, I know he was kicked out, but he went after him pretty hardcore. Was that crossing a line at all?
Man, I don't know. If it is, then a lot of people have crossed that line. He's definitely the poster child of kind of villainous, sexual predators, I guess, within the movie. I mean, he's kind of the king of the hill when it comes to being the biggest bad guy right now, and he's the whipping boy, and that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. It was inevitable, I think, that it would come up. I was just
right.
When it did come up, I'm like, okay, let's get past this. Like, not get past it because I think we need to make light of it. I just think, mention it and move on, I guess, is my point. I don't know I don't know what benefit or what further good is going to happen coming out of any more of that. Too much of that. I think what we saw in the Oscars in general was such a positive thing, and in terms of I mean, you could feel the sea change happening in Hollywood and in movies, and that's a really good thing, and that's where I prefer to see the focus.
Yeah, I mean, and Harvey Weinstein is sort of the elephant in the room in terms of like what's happening this year. A lot of the positive things that have come out of this incredibly negative set of acts. And so I don't know that I personally had a big issue with him being the whipping boy of the night. I think that that's a place he sort of earned. And it was sort of inevitable this was the movie news story of the year, right? And, like Weinstein's, not maybe Weinstein specifically, but, all of the, sexual harassment and just all of that has been happening. And Weinstein was the poster child for it. So I don't have a problem with them leaning into it, because that was the news story of the year, at least in terms of film.
Yeah, I just don't. I have no problem with them leaning into it for if there's something behind it. I just don't know what, in this case, what was behind it. Other than, I mean, are they making people who are unaware of it aware of it? I don't know. Maybe
catharsis. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of it where it's just like
venting, basically.
A lot of the people in that room have had their careers impacted one way or the other by, even if not by him, but by something along these lines. And so I think that there's a little bit of it's just sort of like, it's kind of like when you're working and you've got that one dude who's just been fucking things up for the team for the last several years, and he's finally quit, and you just have that one giant like Oh my God. I'm just so glad that like Bob is gone. Man, you're right. Fuck Bob. Like Bob was messing this up. Bob was doing that. And it just happens that this is a televised one in front of like, millions of people. But I understand that because it's like it's not just, I mentioned it from being a topical news story, but more than anything, like this is like their job, like water cooler news. Like this is something like probably most of the people that were on the stage interacted with the Weinstein Company in some way, shape, or form, or someone who is impacted by it. So it's, it's very front of mind to all of these people because this is their workplace.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it felt measured enough, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was well measured. I don't think the whole night was about that. So I think it was mentioned once or twice, and, we were on to other things, which is good. That's fine with me. Yeah.
What else?
What else? Should we talk about some of the big events of the night?
I think we should. You know what? I think we should.
Why not? Let's do it.
Well, you mentioned Tiffany Haddish and Maya Rudolph. They came out to introduce, I want to say it was short films. One of the short film categories. And they were very hilarious when they came out. And I think they kind of got maybe my attention as kind of lively presenters of the night, I will say, for their little shtick up there. They definitely had some chemistry going on. I thought they were great. They did a whole thing about how last year was Oscars so white, and this year there has been some progression on that front. But don't worry, because there's still plenty of white people involved in the Oscars this year. I thought that was hilarious. Probably one of the best jokes in the night. So yeah, it was great seeing them, and I really enjoyed that part of it.
And I think half of the internet probably agrees with this statement, so it's not a hot take at all. But like, I am so in favor of the two of them doing the hosting duties next year. Like, I feel like they came out and introduced those two shorts awards about midway through ish the ceremony, all things considered, and that's usually about the time where you get past that initial jolt of energy and you're not quite at the end of the night ceremonies that sort of like pick up with the big awards. That middle part really can sag down, and it was starting to just sag for me until they came out and just like invigorated the entire night. Like, I want to see the two of them do hosting duties next year. We've seen co-hosts before, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Cold. Yeah,
it can be hot and cold, but the two of them have just a natural amount of chemistry. I don't think you would have to do a lot of extra gags and a lot of like, check out this jet ski or check out this other thing. Like, I think the two of them just on their natural chemistry and charisma could carry a show all the way through.
Yeah, I don't know if that remains to be seen. I think we've tried the two host thing before, and I think the only problem with that is going to be one of expectation. People are going to expect them to be as hilarious as they were for that 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes they were on stage for, 25 times that when they have to do the hosting duties. And that's going to be tough to pull off. And if they don't, meet those expectations, then it's going to fall into that category of like, yeah, we tried the two host things before. I don't know why we didn't learn our lesson last time. I don't know. It'll remain to be seen. I think it's worth a shot.
So what would we say is, I know we got to do words here in a moment, but there's all this framing stuff around it. Like, were there any segments that stood out to either of you as above the pack or dramatically below the pack? Like, if you could like cut one segment or one thing out of this ceremony, what would it be? Because something needs to be cut. This damn thing ran on almost 4 hours.
Man, it's gonna be. I have to admit, and I had this discussion with somebody last night who didn't agree with me, and I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I think maybe while it's nice to see the technical awards. I don't know if some of the technical awards need to be in the show, and I get that that's a big part of movie making, but I think they make as much of a production out of the technical awards as they do a lot of the other more prestige awards. Maybe they just need to cut some categories out of the presentation. I thought in years past they'd done that. I thought that they had in ceremonies past covered a certain amount of the awards, but other ones they announced kind of like at commercial breaks. Do you remember that happening? Like, you know, at awards given at the Academy of Sciences, you know, luncheon yesterday, the following were awarded the Oscars for excellence in, you know, art direction or whatever. And I thought they used to do that more. Maybe I'm just misremembering it.
Well, they did. It's just it wasn't any of these awards. Like the awards luncheon they do there is like, you know, innovations, and like some guy will come up with like a new motion capture like software, or a guy will come up with like a new lens for a camera, like incredibly technological advancements. Like those are the ones that get awarded at that special luncheon. And they usually do like a little 5-minute segment, like, hey, here's John Krasinski and The Rock. They hosted yesterday at the, and, you know, or just, you know, and I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised they didn't do that this year, because that's a thing that normally gets some love, and it didn't come here. And I don't necessarily need it, but
I mean, we got some of that. They went on and on about Patrick Stewart hosting, and we got some of that. But here's the thing. I mean, if we're talking about moving people getting their awards and giving their acceptance speeches so we can make more room for this blown out comedy bullshit, that to me feels like a disservice to what the show like should be about. You know what I mean? Like, if we have to cut someone's speech so that we can have more jokes, like, I get it. We're trying to be entertaining and keep people engaged, but like, the Oscars are to give out awards. You know what I mean? So if it's happening off screen, it's on commercial break, you know, whatever, I guess you can make those adjustments. But to me, that feels a little antithetical. But
and I see that point. I think they have to make the balance between being an awards show, which is typically pretty dry stuff, and entertainment. And that's the line that they have to walk. And I think maybe it's swung too much. The pendulum is swung too much toward the entertainment side of it for your tastes, or I don't know. I mean, maybe you cut out all the jet ski stuff and the, you know, go into movie theaters and
but here's the thing.
Stuff,
the jet ski stuff took like 25 seconds each time. You know what I mean? Like 4 minutes of people joking around before they give an award. That's a lot more. Like, you could still have them come out, be funny, give a couple jokes, but like, I just don't think you need like 4 minutes. I mean, at one point, like I was timing them, and it was like 3.5 minutes of standing there awkwardly making jokes. Like Will said, they're not necessarily known for being comedic actors. Their jokes aren't landing. Like at one point, I forget who it was, but he like made this joke that didn't land at all. Nobody laughed. And he was like, well, there's that. Anyway, the award for blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, why force that? Why artificially? It's one thing if they were all comedians, I guess, maybe, but why are we overinflating it?
I think that's where you get like, you leave the comedy to the host and you let the presenters. I would be all for like kind of minimizing kind of the role of the presenters themselves. Like, I think it's okay for them to come out and say something to the effect of, you know, like, one of the things that I noticed this year was blank. And that's important because of segue into the award. You know, like that type of stuff is totally fine. But I think when you try to force the humor into the hands of people who that's not their thing, that's where the problems come from. And you can just shore some of that up. And granted, that maybe saves 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there. But at the end of the night, you know, that may save 10, 15 minutes of screen time. And as people are like, especially people on the East Coast are probably looking at that clock going like, well, fuck, I got to get up and go to work in the morning. Like, even an extra 10 minutes is like, is glorious, glorious sleep.
Indeed. What about the awards themselves, guys?
Yeah, I think the awards were, and I mentioned this before. There weren't any like big surprises, and I don't mean that to say that like I had like a 100% prediction rate or anything like that, but just like I think sometimes you get an award where like there's one or two contestant or nominees that are sort of like in the running, and then this dark horse just kind of snatches it out of nowhere. And I don't think that really happened. I think like the ones that ended up winning, it was either the front runner or the kind of the second place one in a lot of people's minds that ended up taking these awards. So that made it, I don't know if that made it predictable as a good thing. In other words, like you could see the through line and kind of trace it from, all of the different awards and kind of see some consistency, or if that made it anticlimactic as an entertainment program, because we're kind of going like, okay, it's going to be one of these two movies that gets Best Picture. Okay, yeah, it's one of those two movies that got Best Picture. That said, I'm pretty happy with a lot of the picks that ended up happening. Like I could quibble about a few, and trust me, I will. But I think we should probably start kind of big and then work our way to some of the others. But Best Picture ended up going to Shape of Water, and I don't think that was a terribly surprising pick, all things considered. I think coming into it, it was sort of a 3-horse race, just in terms of which one would actually take it away, not in terms of which ones I would pick. But Shape of Water, 3 Billboards, and Get Out was actually getting a lot of like kind of last minute momentum. But the Oscars is a preferential ballot, which means people vote in order. And so the problem with Get Out and 3 Billboards is I think those two got a lot of first place votes, but I think they probably got a lot of like last place or next to last place votes by Get Out. There were a lot of like kind of older members of the Academy who just don't value horror at all and will never vote for it. 3 Billboards, because of some of the controversy about how it handled race. I know there are a lot of people that probably pushed it a little further down. So Shape of Water is a pretty safe choice. Like even if it wasn't someone's first choice, it could very easily be someone's second or third choice on their ballot. And that averages out in a preferential ballot to make it kind of the winner here. And well-deserved. I think we all enjoyed that movie quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I did like The Shape of Water quite a bit. And I was perfectly happy to see it win. But I agree with you, Will. I think it was kind of it ended up being the safe choice. It's not like somebody's there saying, oh, I have these controversial picks, and then I have this safe pick, and I'm going to pick it. It just ended up being the one that most people, most voters voted for, and it ended up feeling like a safe pick. But kudos to Guillermo del Toro for winning Best Picture and, of course, Best Director, which we can also talk about. His time, it has been long overdue in coming. I was glad to see him win. He's made one of the, my favorite movies of all time in Pan's Labyrinth. So I was glad to see him win for this. And I was also glad to see them trot out Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty to announce Best Picture again. I was so happy to see that for a lot of reasons. Number one, it gives them a little bit of redemption for the fuck up of last year, which, by the way, was not really mostly their fault for that, because they were handed, I guess there were multiple envelopes and there was a mix up with the envelopes that was not their fault. So they kind of took the heat for that one, but also because it added a lot of tension and levity to that moment. As a matter of fact, after the Best Picture, Guillermo del Toro picked up the award for Best Picture. When he got to the stage, he takes the envelope from Warren Beatty and he reads it himself, and then he nods to the audience like, yep, he read the right one this time. And I thought that was great.
Were you guys wincing when they opened the envelope that they were going to do like a really bad La La Land joke right there?
And they didn't, which was great. I thought, they didn't. I was wincing because there was an air, there was this aura of like unpredictability that was going on, which kind of got my adrenaline going, which was good. It wasn't a boring like, and the winner is this. It was it added a moment of tension and excitement, which I think worked for me.
How would you guys have felt if instead of Beatty and Dunaway, if you'd gotten Barry Jenkins, who was kind of famously robbed of giving like a really good like acceptance speech last year, and let him do the introduction to this, just sort of as a mea culpa about like taking away that moment from like an important work both in Black and LGBTQ cinema history?
You mean as a way to kind of like to be like to atone to him for that?
Yeah, and into the film in general, like of the, you know, that particular Best Picture film, like it was very overshadowed by La La Land because of what happened.
Yeah,
and I know Barry Jenkins, like he's come out with some interviews lately saying like, I'm like that took away something very important from me. Like, you know, this was a very personal film, and I didn't get to have the moment with it that I wanted. And
that's unfortunate. I just don't know if a makeup call like that would have felt too much like a makeup call, and been and come off. I would just be afraid that it would have come off as, I don't know, makeup-y, I guess you could say. I would have been fine with it either way, depending on how it was handled. Certainly can't wait for his next movie, but it would have been fine either way. I don't fault the Academy though for making the choices that they made in terms of like. I know there's been some controversy in terms of some of the presenters, right? Didn't somebody step down this year? I forget who it was from last year. One of the presenters.
Oh yeah,
was supposed to present. Was it Casey Affleck?
I think so.
Yeah, Casey Affleck stepped down because of the controversy surrounding him, because he was the winner last year for Best Actor, right? I believe. Yeah. So, yeah, he chose to step down. So there was a little bit of controversy there. But Will, was there controversy around this? Best Picture presenter?
Not a controversy, but I heard a lot of people kind of putting that out there into the universe. Like, it would be great if this happened. I don't think it was like an up in arms thing, but I think it was sort of like a very popular wish list item. And I think one that I probably would have personally seconded, although at the same time, not from like a, well, fuck Beatty and Dunaway, it had to be Jenkins or nothing. Just, it was kind of like that. That would have been nice.
Yeah. There's a lot of that sentiment out there too, though. Like the olds fucked it up last year, which I don't buy into at all. But yeah, so there's the feelings on both sides of that, I think.
Brad, which category most excited you?
None of them. Moving on. No, I'm just kidding. Gosh, I would say probably Best Original Song. And that might sound like a weird choice, but I feel like, in a year with some really great songs that came out, there was a lot of diversity represented. But, for a long, long time, I feel like Mexico has gotten such a short shrift. There's so much talent. There's so much beautiful music. And, we've had it in so many films over the years, and, it's not been recognized. And it was funny. Felipe, who does Real Comics Podcast, was over last night for the party. And it was such a crazy, magical moment last night. And I hope he doesn't mind me telling the story, but they performed the song, and that was really great. But then when they're announcing the award, he and I had both chosen Remember Me from Coco on our ballots. And when it won, I looked over at Felipe and he looked over at me, and he just started like crying a little bit. And, he himself is of that descent. And, he just sat up and he was having this like very emotional reaction. And he was like, it finally happened. He's like, I can't believe it. I never, ever, ever thought I would see this happen on the Oscars. And he's like, I feel just so amazing to like be who I am and where I'm from. And he's like, the cultural pride there for me, like, it's just amazing right now. And I know so many other people on Facebook today who are saying the same thing. And, even our buddy Paul in the live chat right now says, I cried when Remember Me won. a friend called me because he knew I was going to be happy. I couldn't talk for a moment. Very, very important moment. So amazing. And I fucking loved seeing finally it come due and it getting that. So I was really excited to see what happened in that category. Not to take anything away, from Mary J. Blige. I kind of felt like that song was getting a ton of buzz, and it's an incredible song. But I was just like, man, like I really want this year to be the year that it happened. And I was excited to see that it did.
Was that the category that This Is Me was also nominated for?
Yeah,
and I think I saw a lot of love for that song. Of course, I really enjoyed The Greatest Showman as a film this year. It was one of the pleasant surprises out of the movies this year for me. I like the music in that. I think that song is incredible and definitely worthy of the nomination. It's a good thing I don't have to pick these winners because I saw a lot of love for that. And everybody kind of gets, music is very emotional, of course. Everybody has their emotional connection to music. So there was a lot of everybody had their was rooting for a particular song there. But I think Remember Me is definitely a worthy winner.
And this was a stacked category. And you get that sometimes where it's just like, man, like if 3 or 4 of these things win, it would make perfect sense and I'd be totally good with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Remember Me is a very solid choice. Mystery of Love by Sufjan Stevens was while I was my prediction was for Remember Me. There was a little part of me that was pulling for Sufjan Stevens because that's of the songs in this category. That's the one that I've had on repeat this year. It had that impact on me. This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. Like I was lower on that film than you guys were, but I was super freaking high on the soundtrack as a whole. Like that is one of the most bingeable soundtracks of the year. Like the songs on it are so good. And one thing that really stood out to me last night during the Oscar ceremony, all the performances were good. I think all of them were fine performances. But if I were just awarding one based off of how good the live performance was at the Oscars, holy shit, what they did with This Is Me was amazing. Like I would have and I saw that on social media. A lot of people, even at the Oscar party I was at, a lot of people were like, this is good. What movie did they say this was from? And people on social media just like, I think I need to go see Greatest Showman. Like it was a moment in a night where there were only a few like moments. I think that This Is Me performance was definitely one of them. But again, so was the win and the acceptance speech by Kristen and Robert Lopez when they got the Remember Me statue. So this category was just full of moments.
It's so interesting though, Jim, you mentioned like the social media response. Like, I was reading through stuff today and, someone that we know and respect totally like was tearing down Remember Me and Coco. And he was like, I can't believe that fucking song won and they didn't, have any right to da 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 da. And I'm just kind of like, look, like maybe you didn't want it to win. You know what I mean? But like, I don't think that makes it a bad song. I don't think it makes it, unworthy. And he wasn't the only one. I've seen lots of other folks who, were behind Greatest Showman and they think that should have won. And it's like, I think you can say, hey, I wish something else would have won without being like, oh, no talent. This was stupid. This is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that happened for so many categories last night. It just drives me crazy.
Thank you. You don't have to like tear something else down to elevate the things that you like. And that's one of my biggest problems with people's reactions to the Oscars. It's the same reaction that people have to like any major thing. Super Bowl comes out and it's okay to be a little snarky about things on social media because that's how social media is. But there are people when these events happen who go out of their way to try to diminish the joy of other people, like, oh, this is so fucking stupid. Oh, you're watching Super Bowl? I don't want to watch that stupid sports ball. And like, just dig into that for hours straight. Same thing with Oscars. Or oh, you like this movie? Well, that's fucking stupid. I wanted this other one to win instead. And instead, like, I look at the Oscars as such. Taking the winners out, take the winners out entirely. If you just said that this was a celebration of 5 worthy nominees in every category outside of Best Picture and outside of makeup and hair, which only gets 3 for some reason, that's how I view it. Like, all of these are the best of the best, at least in terms of like this awards voting group. So if a film doesn't get a statue, it's not being criminally robbed if it was the one of the other 5 nominees. It was still being elevated. It's now gets to slap Oscar nominated on its packaging. It gets a marketing bump as well. So I'm right there with you, Brad. Like, it's so frustrating to hear that, just that again, it's one thing to prefer a thing over the other, but it's another thing to just be a complete negative Nancy about it.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be my best positive Jim. But sometimes I'm human, and sometimes one of my recognized faults shows through. There have been times I try not to tear anything down, but there are things that I don't mind voicing my displeasure about, in terms of like, hey, I didn't like that. I didn't think that was very good. And I did that this week. Will saw it. I know he saw it. It had to do with the live action shorts. And man, that was a super wake up call. Yeah, we ended up watching the live action shorts, which is going to be my plug later on anyway. And there was one that stood out to me anyway as being one like, I don't think this really has a shot. This one just does not. It did not resonate with me at all. And it actually was the one that won I'm sorry, the animated short. The animated short.
Oh, are you talking about the Kobe commercial?
Oh, yes, the animated short that won. I'm like,
let's talk on that. Yeah,
let's talk about that. I mean, Kobe has an Oscar now, which is fine.
Let's preface it by saying the animation was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Speech was beautiful. It was a very cool thing. We respect it. Now dump on it.
No, I'm not going to dump on it. I'm just going to say that I don't know. I just don't think it stood up to at least 2 other animated shorts that I saw. But that's just my taste. You know what I mean? I'm sure a lot of people loved that, if only for the fact that it was about Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean? I mean, and I want to say that was a huge factor in its win, but that might be a little bit too reductive. But man, it's LA, and I don't know. It was really strange to me, but hey, Kobe's got an Oscar as a filmmaker now, which is one more than a lot of other filmmakers that I really highly respect.
He has one more than Laurie Metcalf, and that is a crime. Yeah, the animation category for animated shorts, and actually animated features, barring like 2 exceptions, were by and large kind of weak this year. And I think that showed with Dear Basketball taking the win. And yes, part of it is because there's the LA connection. Yes, part of it is because if you're an Oscar voter and you haven't seen them, and then one of them is by, oh yeah, but that's the guy I watched on TV, like that's going to stand out. But also, aside from the Lou, which was the Pixar
short,
the other ones you only got to see if you saw them as part of the Oscar program or got a screener. Whereas they did a bit of a push with Dear Basketball around the same time that he was doing his retirement. They put the link up online, like Kobe's retiring. Now go watch this animated short that shows, and so it had a lot more exposure.
Marketing then, basically.
For me, I'm interested to hear what your favorites were, because for me, again, it was a weak category. I wouldn't have put it up there in probably against other animated shorts in the past, but holy crap, I had a good time with Garden Party.
Yeah, unfortunately, the shorts program that we saw was not in the movie theaters. So and I'll talk about this a little bit later. So only 3 of them are released on the one that you can buy on, and it's only Garden Party, Negative Space, and Dear Basketball. I think that's right, Brad. Is that right?
Yeah, Lou was not in, and then
there was another one that wasn't in, Lou and whatever the other one was. But the other 2 I saw, I liked the Garden Party and especially Negative Space. I thought were pretty amazing. I did see Lou because it was in front of Cars 3 earlier this year. So that's where I saw that. But I didn't see the 5th one.
And the 5th one, Revolting Rhymes, was it was sort of a cheat in this category anyway. They took what was essentially a feature length, maybe a short feature length, but a feature length animated movie. But since it was a fable, they told it in 2 halves. And the first half of them was one of the shorts. So you're kind of watching half of a movie with it. And it's long. It's the longest of the shorts.
I see.
Yeah, it felt like a cheat in this category.
Right. But anyway, Kobe walked away. My jaw hit the floor when they announced that one. And then somebody tweeted me right back because they remembered my tweet from the other day. And they said, "I told you so." Basically, that's what they said.
People on the internet don't do that.
No, I know.
The internet remembers nothing.
Yeah, that's okay. I kind of deserved it.
Hey, so I have an aside. This wasn't actually an award, but I mean, gays and red carpet shows. There's a lot of controversy today about the Olympian who wore a leather harness with his tuxedo.
Yeah, Adam Rippon.
Yeah, and I guess people I don't know, we're tearing him down for wearing a harness and saying it was, a bad choice, and that he shouldn't have even been allowed to go, and the fact that he wore that is a disgrace, and and I find it a little bit interesting, I guess, that we're tearing this guy down, you know what I mean, for that. I don't know. Some of the dresses last night were 3 strings that covered the vagina, and that was it. How is that any different than, I don't know.
Hey, Brad, are you insinuating that the gays basically will tear down their own?
Well, gays would never, ever do that. But
it wasn't just the gays either. Part of the reason he wore that was, so this is the figure skater who had the comments about Mike Pence, and they kind of had a back and forth, which vice president should not be getting into back and forths with people on Twitter, but hey, there's a bad precedent from above. So he wore this particular harness there in addition to fashion, in addition to just being very, very, very openly gay, is sort of like a statement, just I'm going to continue to be unapologetically gay. Not that harnesses are specifically gay, but it is a part of our culture. What's particularly funny for me was how many people didn't understand it. BBC put out a thing that was openly gay, openly gay figure skater Adam Rippon wore a harness possibly inspired by the 50 Shades of Grey movies. It's come on, BBC. You really need to hire some gay writers if that's what you think.
Yeah, I saw something about it. I wasn't sure what was going on. It didn't really. I didn't even see him, I don't think, on the award show. I might have been doing something at the moment, but was it just on the red carpet or something?
Might have just been red. He wasn't presenting.
It was just red carpet. Yeah.
Couple other things we should mention. I want to hit on another big one, which was Jordan Peele winning for Best Original Screenplay for Get Out, which I thought was pretty amazing and kind of a minor surprise, I think, in this category. I'm trying to remember who it was that I had picked in this category. I think it was McDonough. I think it was McDonough for 3 Billboards. I think I kind of thought that movie might win, but I wasn't disappointed at all that Jordan Peele got it. I thought Get Out, at least for most of it, was a pretty fantastic script and a great idea. So I mean, great for Jordan Peele. I'm looking forward to see what he does next too.
Yeah, that was exciting. I think that was, again, we talked about moments. I think Jordan Peele's acceptance there was one of the more memorable acceptance speeches. Him and probably Frances McDormand were there. And it was a stacked category. It's another one of those because up against, you mentioned 3 billboards. The Big Sick, this was the category it was nominated for. And on top of everything else, Kumail Nanjiani and his wife, Emily Gordon, the 2 writers and the inspiration for the film, they've been sort of darlings during the awards season, just like because they are remarkably charming people that you just want to get sound bites from. Also, the scripts for Lady Bird and The Shape of Water were in that category as well. And so for Get Out to win, not just on the strength of its writing, but on the strength of its writing against 4 other phenomenal scripts, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one I wanted to mention was Frances McDormand winning for Best Actress. Probably the easiest category to call this year, maybe. Arguably, I would say, was the Best Actress category, and Frances McDormand winning for that. Her acceptance speech was pretty awesome. Everybody immediately Googled inclusion rider as soon as she walked off the stage. And I think most of us kind of have an idea what that is now. It was an odd note to kind of end it at the way she did. I get the sentiment and I agree. It just felt kind of because it left awkwardly. Maybe that was her intention. But man, when she got up there and she said exactly what you said, Will, at the beginning of the show, she said, if I start passing out, catch me because I have something to say. Everybody kind of buckled their seatbelts and like, oh my God, what are we going to get? And it was totally worth the ride. It was great.
Someone's hand was hovering over the beep button.
Yeah, exactly. But it really was great. It was, empowering of women in entertainment, which I think was great. And she basically deflected the attention from herself to all of the other women that are involved in film, not just people in front of the camera, but people behind the camera, producers, writers, technical people that are female that work on these movies. I thought that was a pretty powerful moment.
Yeah, I think that her speech happening, like really it was the next to last award, right? Because after that was Best Picture and, that sort of like coasted things through. But she got to give the last like singular speech on stage. And it was one of the most powerful and most impactful. And if you can look at the award season truly as a season, like that's a great season finale moment, right? Like when Frances McDormand takes the stage and just kind of turns the power back over to all of the women in the stage. It's sort of like, spoiler alert, season finale of Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 7, which I think that's a reference that only a few people get, but it's very, very pertinent. It's very, very appropriate, just kind of turning over the power to all women instead of to just a select few. Especially after that Gary Oldman speech, which, don't get me wrong, right before this, we got Gary Oldman for Best Actor, and he was, I think he was another one of those lock picks. He did it was a great performance in Darkest Hour, even if it was a poor script and not great direction at all. But his performance was wonderful.
Somebody gets your Buffy reference as well.
Yay, Randy Wyatt says gets Buffy references. Randy, that means you're my people. Like I love you, Randy. But Gary Oldman's acceptance speech was a slog. I had a hard time paying attention to him. He was poised, he was together and all of that, but it was just long and it was boring. Did you guys feel the same?
Yeah, there were a few. There's always a few like that, Will. It's just tough when some of the marquee ones end up being like that. It's just a little rough. You end up saying, okay, let's get on to the next one already, unfortunately.
Well, it becomes this question of like, is it an acceptance speech where you thank all the people who got you there, or is it, oh, here's my chance to get political? And if you're expecting the political speech and you don't get it, then it's just another boring acceptance speech. If you're expecting the acceptance speech and you get a political rant, it's, oh, now they're trying to politicize it. Yeah. So it's like, how do you walk that line? Like, can you make people half happy? I don't know.
Well, I think there's a way to make it a personal speech that makes you feel something without being political. I think you can do that, and I think a lot of people have done it. That's my favorite kind of speech. Not too political, not too dry. Like, I want to thank the executive producer, Steven, blah 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 blah. And what I mean, I want to hear what this award means to you, and maybe a little bit about your experience on the film. That's the kind of thing that gets my attention.
For me, I don't care if it's political, not political, personal, dramatic, funny. I don't care about that, as long as it is sincere. And that's the thing that I think you sometimes don't get. Like, and maybe sincere isn't even the right word for it. I think some people get up there and they don't know what else to do, so they just go to their list. And that's fine. That's whatever. I think some people get up there and they know that the political thing is happening, and so they try to also bolster that, but it's not natural to them. I have a bit of a problem there. So I don't care if it's super political, super personal, whatever it is, as long as it's sincere and well delivered. And I think that's what we got with, like, I look at Frances McDormand, and hers was incredibly sincere and well delivered and remarkably political. I think about, we mentioned it before, but like Jordan Peele's, there was certainly a tinge of like just sort of the politics of, I think this is I want to say the number of something like 4th or 5th, and I could be slightly underestimating that, but like times that like a black writer has been nominated in the 90 years of the Oscars. But his speech was a lot more about just sort of his personal journey and some of those things. And that was good too, because it was sincere. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see from all. And I think that Gary Oldman, I just didn't get that from him. And not to knock him too much for it, because this isn't a we're not grading them, I guess, based on their acceptance speeches. We're grading them based on their performances, and it was an A+ performance. But still, that was like 3 minutes of my life I'm not going to be able to get back.
Oh, that's an idea. We could give awards for the acceptance speeches too. That would be great. Like we grade them at the end of the night. Give everybody for acceptance speeches.
Indeed. Well, guys, speaking of music playing during acceptance speeches, we're getting a little long in the tooth, and it's very, very late since we got such a late start. So I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about from an Oscars perspective. Will, we're going to see you in like 4 days, so I'm sure we can at least chat more about it.
Yes.
in Austin for South by. But let's go ahead and wrap up with some plugs. Jim, what have you got this week?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to plug the 2018 Oscar-nominated live action and animated short films. We discovered that we missed our chance to see these in the movie theater just because our lives are super busy right now. But you can now go out and see these. You can get them at least on iTunes. I don't think they're on Netflix yet. I don't know what other outlets they would be available on, but they are available on iTunes as a package. You don't have to buy the individual movies. You can buy the whole package, and I think it's all 5 of the live action short films, and as I mentioned, 3 of the animated short films. So for a total of 8 short films, and both of the winners are included. So if you want to go see what the buzz is about, check that out. It's put out by Shorts TV, which I guess is a company that kind of compiles these together every year, and they go to different theaters and then they put it out on VOD. But it's the 2018 Oscar nominated short films. Check them out. They're worth checking out.
Indeed. DeKalb Elementary and The Silent Child both slayed the fuck out of me. They were so good. Oh, good plug. Will, how about you?
Hey, my plug is actually Oscar themed as well. The winner for the foreign language film category, which was also pretty solid, is this film called A Fantastic Woman. It's a Chilean movie, and it's just now getting its, or at least in Austin, it's just now reached theatrical here, which means that it's been in New York and LA already, and it's starting its trickle around. And because it won, I think it's going to be showing on a few more screens as a result of that. And this is an absolutely stellar movie that is very, very pertinent, not just as a fan of movies, but also as as part of this LGBTQ podcast that we do. It's this movie about this trans woman who is in love with someone who's like 30 years older, and something happens to him. He in the first couple minutes he passes away, and so now she's having to deal with her grief, but also the fact that everyone in his life, his ex-wife and brother and his son from a previous marriage, are just trying to box her out on every front possible. It's devastating. It's beautifully acted, and most importantly, the lead in this, Daniela Vega, who was actually the first trans person to ever actually present an award at the Academy Awards. That was another first that we experienced last night. She is just amazing, and I'm looking forward to whatever she does next. It's a fantastic woman, and it is a fantastic movie.
Yeah, another
fantastic woman, fantastic woman.
Will, you're right. It's unfortunately it's a slow rollout, so you may not see it in your area for a little while. I know that The Loft is going to have it because it's on the cover of their monthly magazine, but I think it's going to be later this month. So we will definitely get to see that.
For sure. Well, mine is Oscars related too. So gosh, I feel like the whole show's been about the Oscars, but you know what? It happens once a year. That's okay. My favorite film of 2017, unfortunately did not win the Oscar. I figured it would not. But that was Call Me By Your Name. And it recently did come out on iTunes and Google Play and Vudu and all that good stuff. So if you've not yet seen Call Me By Your Name, now is an excellent opportunity to do so. Really, really a fantastic film. I just bought it. I can't wait to watch it again. I was going to watch it on my own, and now we have some friends that were at the party last night who didn't see it, and they're like, oh my God, can we watch it with you guys? Now we're going to be gone for a week and a half and probably won't be able to hang out with them for like 3 weeks, so I don't know how I'm going to last 3 more weeks without watching it. But anyway, really, really great movie. If you haven't seen it yet, do so. It's just a shame that they had to spend $3 million editing out Armie Hammer's balls that kept popping out of his super short shorts in that movie. I, would have crowdsourced $3 million to keep them in the movie.
I was about to say, just here's a better use of that money. Just give me personally $3 million and let me see his balls. Like, right? Win-win.
Indeed. So check out Call Me By Your Name. Guys, I just want to say a great big thank you to Jim and Will coming right out of work and also not eating anything for 9 hours. I'm not my normal self, so thanks for being patient with me. I appreciate that. Also, a great big hello to everyone who's been hanging out with us in the live chat tonight. Sammy and Randy and Steve and gosh, Nick and Greg and so many folks. Bobby Miller. Jim's laughing because I'm doing my romper stomper bomper boo.
No, I'm laughing because I was trying to do the heart thing.
Oh, okay. So much love for you guys hanging out with us live. The show is a lot of fun. We love talking to each other, but it's even more fun when we get to talk with you guys. So thanks so much for being on board. Also, a big hello to everyone who's listening on digital tape delay. Glad to have you guys with us as well. I wasn't here last week when we got to kind of debut our new theme song, but guys, I listened to it again right before the show. And oh my God, it jazzes me up so much to hear that song. So, Jim, I can't wait for you to edit this episode so that we can hear it again, all put together. Really good stuff. Guys, where can people find you online if they want to interact? Jim, go.
Find me on Twitter at JJPOutWest, all one word. And you can find me, of course, on Facebook under my real name, Jim Pugliafico. And I don't think I have a double on Facebook, but if I do, look for the one who looks like me.
As people who are listening, actually, this is really funny, Jim. There is in fact, another Jim Pugliafico.
Does he look like me?
He's bald and wearing glasses, and you're super hot and wearing a Star Trek Discovery uniform. So for anyone that may be trying to figure out who Jim is, there you go. That may help.
I have the disco.
And if you look at the two Jims, they're mutual friends, it will be very obvious which one of them hosts a bear podcast.
He might be related to me for all I know.
There's actually a third one, James Pugliafico, who looks like he's a hot bear. So it's not the one holding a baby. So there you go, Jim.
I have no babies anymore.
Will, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Whatever Cove. You can find me on Facebook. I'm William Lindis. You can find me on Letterboxd. I'm William Lindis there as well. Surprising, that's my name. You can also find me at the Oscar party of Austin King, who I want to give a quick shout out to. He's one of our listeners, a friend of our show. Hosted an amazing party last night with these amazing Call Me By Your Name themed
the peach
cookies that are one of the best themed snacks I've ever seen. So shout out to him, and shout out to those places you can find.
Did they have sugar glazed frosting?
They were cream filled.
They were filled with a cream liqueur.
Nice. Well, there you go.
I love it.
He also served like stuffed mushrooms in theme of one of the other picks, and some Dunkirk chips and dress, like ladybird wings. Like everything was themed, and it was heavenly.
Very nice. Very cool. Well, very good. You can find me. I'm going to say find me on Twitter at iBradPro. I used to say find me on Facebook, but some new folks who added me through the show on Facebook also recently attacked the crap out of me for something I said, which I maybe had it coming a little bit, but I think I'm maybe done adding random people from the show to my Facebook. So interface with me on Twitter. You can attack me on Twitter. That's fine. But my dad probably doesn't need to see some of the horrible things that you guys said about me. Anyway, much love to everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll definitely be with you next week. We are going to be on location at South by Southwest Film Festival. We are super pumped. We are super stoked. Will, we are going to be bedding down in the green room in just a few days.
I'm so excited. Like, you have no idea, guys. Like, it's just in a few short days, you'll be hopping off the plane and unloading your bags, and I'm so excited.
Me too. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait. We'll figure out what we're doing for next week. It may just be highlights from South by. So if you're looking for some recommendations on films that may be coming out at some point, definitely give that a listen. And we'll be back at you with a main audience review accessible film coming at you soon. Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you next time. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.